Morning, Gary. This is a response to your video, which is a response to the video I made about temple grandin. And it's really, it's got me thinking about, the relationship between human life and animal life, between the kind of morality of bringing life into the world, whether that be human life through child rearing or through animal life through animal husbandry and factory farming or farming of any kind, and the whole kind of morality of suffering and how shitty life is, a lot of the time. I think, as you probably know, 99% agreement with most of the things you say in this regard, and as I've said in the past, science and rational thinking, conventional rational thinking, it's been pretty hopeless in describing that situation. You get pessimistic sounding philosophers like Schopenhauer who talk about it, but it's hard to read, and a lot of it goes off into places that I don't think are interesting. The people who've described it best, unfortunately, are religions. They've just been so much better at describing the human condition and the animal condition than science and philosophy has, unfortunately. But they come all with that baggage, you know what I mean? And I guess I've talked about that in the past, and I guess you have in different ways. The concept of original sin, which is a stupid, toxic idea when literally applied. But if I think of that as, we come from a long line of sinners, in that our animal and human ancestors, were the ones who were the meanest, toughest, most exploitative, most ruthless bastards, really. We are all the sons and daughters of bastards, for sure. And even the ones, people do say, oh yeah, it's not just about red and tooth and claws, there's also empathy and altruism and kin spirit and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, it's true, yeah, but those are just, well, as we know, they're not universals. They're not good traits, they're selection techniques. It's those feelings which allow you to, or it allowed our ancestors and allow us to select this animal over that animal, this human over that human. It's that thing about Slavoj Zizek I talked about ages ago, where he talks about love being a weapon. It's toxic. Love picks a person out, says they're special, and fuck everybody else. It's that kind of, that's the background, I think. So all of those, that arms race, an arms race of weaponry and an arms race of selection techniques. Even Oskar Schindler had a list, he made, and he's probably one of the most altruistic people you can imagine. He didn't save everybody. When push came to shove, he had to make a list. Anyway, I don't know, badmouth Oskar Schindler, but anyway, so I'm with you on that. And that's kind of my version of original sin. We come out of that origin, we have no doubt, and it's burned into the fabric of our brains. All of the the desires and the fears and the hopes and the ambitions and everything that we do. It comes out of that ground. That's the ground from which we've sprung, which religion captures really well, I think. And as I say, it's just a shame it has all the God shit around it. And even the aspirations, maybe they're foolhardy aspirations, but aspirations within kind of theological philosophies of this separation of the mind from the body. I know it's really unfashionable, that kind of dualism, or the separation of the soul from the body. This idea that we could, that we're not just animals. That's that kind of crude distinction, because we can think and because we have a moral sense. Okay, religion says it's part of, God did it, all that kind of shit. But that I think religion is just better at articulating that than science has been. We do stand on a pile of skulls. This is what it's like, and it's given us from this elevated position, we can just see how shit the world is. So I would agree with you in all of that. And also this thing about the future. Obviously I just have to declare an interest. Obviously I have thrown a few fetuses onto the rickety roller coaster myself, so I do have an investment in not maintain. I can't pretend to any kind of neutrality on that, because even if I try to do it. I'm sure there would be subconscious things going on which would come through. So I just have to declare that as an interest. But yeah, you know, what does that mean? You know, okay, we realise this. We look around ourselves and we see what a wonderful world, you know. And I think to myself, in the style of Louis Armstrong, what a wonderful world. But we know, you know, it looks wonderful because it offers differential survival possibilities. We know that those woods are full of active insects and small animals killing other insects and other small animals. You know, we are in the middle of a battle zone here, and it's been a battle zone since day one. So, and it became a morally potent battle zone as soon as sentience emerged. You know what I mean? So that's a huge problem. I mean, the thing about what you do with it, and obviously in the video that I made, I was just talking about this kind of ARC project, which is, I don't know, I just thought it was funny. But yeah, that's not a solution, obviously. Kill all the animals that you don't want, save all the animals that you do, and just make sure and look after them really nicely. Why? What's the point? I mean, it's no point at all. Or at least no point I can think of. You know, if you're not going to eat them, I guess you would need them to keep the biosphere running. You would certainly need insects, otherwise there wouldn't be any plants. You know, you'd need anyway. What am I talking about? Oh yeah. So what do? You know, given the kind of pessimism which both you and I feel in terms of our origins and the skull that lies beneath the skin of the world that we seem to be able to see, what do you do with that? It's assuming we had infinite powers, you know, because obviously we can't do an awful lot, but let's say we had infinite powers, what do you do? Well, obviously you can press the red button, which we talked about before, which is, I think, I'm getting my colours right here, I think that's the one that wipes out all life on Earth. You know, it just untangles all the DNA molecules, everything falls into a pool of goop on the ground simultaneously. And that includes plant life, presumably, because all DNA would have to go, wouldn't it? Because you never know, it might reassert itself and start all over again. Fuck. That'll be one. Let's just say he did that. Maybe, I guess that's okay. But again, you know, who knows? On some distant planet, could a DNA molecule come together again? We know it's unlikely. Extremely unlikely. But it could, couldn't it? Could even re-emerge out the soup that's left over from this entangling. So, but yeah, it would stop certain things. I mean, it would beg the question: what's the point of immaterial matter? You know what I mean? What's the point of just stuff? But yeah, in a sense, that's irrelevant. So that'll be one option. We can't really go there. I don't think we can, but it just leaves the universe open to invasion from more bloody DNA, doesn't it? Really, start the whole bloody cycle again. Actually, there's a really horrible article in Scientific America, maybe New Scientist, a couple of months back, which I meant to tell you about. And it was about this project to seed future planets, just to send probes off with spores in them and kind of the beginnings of DNA molecules in space, so it wouldn't actually colonise with living beings, with ourselves. We wouldn't necessarily go there. We'd just send our DNA out there. It just seems like, whoa, massive arrogance, and also just here's a big lump of suffering out into the universe. Sorry, that's a bit off topic, but anyway, so yeah, the big red button, collapse all life. Yeah, it would work, but it opens the doors to a regeneration. The second thing, which is just stop human life, you know, either press a blue button this time and all the humans drop dead and the animals take over, you know, a bit like that series on television in the book, like The World Without Us or something it was called, you know, what the world would be like without humans on it. So the whole world goes back to nature, which is fine if you like nature, but I think we're in agreement, nature is red and tooth and claw. It is the site of original sin, if you want to put it that way. It is all about animals killing other animals, and again, there's no guarantee that, well, I mean, it would already be full of sentience. There's no guarantee at all that sentience wouldn't become the kind of self-aware, problematic, even more problematic sentience that we have. So you get that. My dog on a lead, sorry, because there's a dog coming this way. Come here, thieves. So you got that. Well, Yeah, I'm never quite sure how she's going to react with dogs on lead. She's usually fine. She doesn't bite or anything, but she just run at them sometimes, you know.
Yeah, well, I already put him on a lead because he goes charging off to other dogs.
Ah, this one does too. That's why I'm keeping her on a lead. Yeah. Go on, Pete. It's all right. It's all right. It's just like that. Anyhow, what was I talking about? Okay, red button. Okay, yeah. So press the green button, and all human life dissolves. Leaves the world open to animals, as we just saw. That's no guarantee of a good outcome. And as I say, it could just be that consciousness re-emerges and we have to have this bloody conversation again in the future. What's the point of that? So again, that's not a solution either. So there isn't one. I mean, either we can hold our hands up in horror, which of course we do, and say, this is fucked, the universe sucks, it's terrible, who designed this shit? Or the alternative, which you're not going to like, but it's, as I say, I've got an investment, I've got fetuses on the rickety roller coaster, so I'm going to have to pretend that I didn't have there for a purpose. Or we restore faith in utopias. Utopias are out of fashion now. Utopias have been big over the last few hundred years. This idea that we can genuinely improve the world, not just by improving political systems, although of course that would have to happen, and not just by improving health and social welfare, including the option to die if you wanted to, easily and painlessly whenever you've chose. Of course that would have to happen. But also a utopia that took into account life, you know, everything. Took into account dogs and cats and animals of all kinds, you know. A 10,000 year project to make the Earth a reasonable fucking place for DNA to exist, you know. So yeah, we'd keep trees, and we'd keep plants, and we'd keep anything that hasn't got a central nervous system, and we'd keep a few things that have got central nervous systems alive, but in a place where they couldn't hurt each other. Probably the herbivores, but we wouldn't eat them, obviously. We would just allow them to continue. We wouldn't artificially inseminate them. Yeah, we've been taught about that actually, because that's the other thing, isn't it, about factory farming and farming more generally, which I'm assuming you would agree with. That's fucking appalling, you know, artificial insemination, breeding millions of these things in order to kill them. You know, that is imposing life where it's not wanted. But yeah, much more kind of shepherding, or a much more kind of curatorial approach to the world, you know. If we manage to stay alive in 10,000 years time, or 20 or 30 or whatever, you know, if we can take on that role, a much more serious role of managing the damn place, you know, getting rid of the sinners, getting rid of the animals that, you know, letting them grandfather themselves out, is what you call it, you know, letting the animals that kill other animals just go extinct. We hang on to things for no fucking reason, don't we? Just let them go extinct. Let the herbivores stay around, because they're not hurting anybody. Let the herbs themselves stay around, because they're not hurting anybody. Wean ourselves off as a fucking species of those ridiculous attachments to eating other living sentient creatures, and turn the world into a better place. I don't think there's much chance, to be honest with you, but yeah, I mean, if they had to have I think there's more chance of that, if I had to be realistic about it. I think there's more chance of that than there is of anybody ever pressing the button to kill everything or kill humans. You know, that's just never going to fucking happen. You know, because the very problems that you're talking about, the problems of meaningless survival, the problems of meaningless attachment, of desire and addiction to life, it's those very problems that will stop people fixing them, aren't they? You know what I mean? So you have to use them as tools, I think, somehow. So yeah, I think there's slightly more chance of a utopia than there is of a totally sterile planet. So that's the only glimmer of hope. So whilst I'm throwing my kids onto the rickety roller coaster, it's a bit, I see what it's like, religious reference. It's one of those projects, like, you know, you don't get long projects, multi-generational projects these days. But in the medieval times, I believe, people did do that. You know, they would start building a cathedral knowing that neither they nor their children would see it. It would be something that their grandchildren would walk into, or maybe their great-grandchildren. You know, 200 or 300 years to build a cathedral. You know, we don't do that. You know, we are very short-term. But you know, if that's the only option, you know, it would be signing people up to a multi-generational project, knowing that you're not going to see the end of it, your kids aren't going to see the end of it, their kids aren't going to see the end of it, and it's going to be pretty crap until the project comes to fruition. But it's the only way, you know. We started walking out on this stupid, or we're thrown out on this stupid road. You know, we have no choice. And we've got all this stuff to look after. Shit. The big white elephant world, you know, we've been given, which we appear to have. We seem to be the only animal around capable of doing anything with anything approaching volition. You know, no one else, no other animal is saying, better not eat meat for moral reasons. You know, we're the only ones that seem to be doing it. So fuck. Take it seriously, I guess. I don't know.